Hello, and welcome to another episode of Inspired Good Fat Life. We have a very special guest today, which I am so excited to hear more from her. But before I introduce her, I just want to remind you that we have Good Fat Life, our magazine, and the podcast and website. And we're also doing some really cool events, February 4th, if you live in the Brighton area, and if not, sorry, but you can check us out, and articles and resources from the event will be on the website, and that's at goodfatlife.com. So that said, I want to introduce our guest today, and her name is Trice Berlinski. And Trice, I'm going to let you tell our audience about you and what you do.
Okay. Thanks, Sherri. Glad to be here. Thank you for having me. And so my business is called Presence to Pupils, and I have been teaching meditation, mindfulness, and neuroscience for the last 11 and a half years, I guess it is now. Had a former career.
Okay.
But have this huge passion, had a calling to help children, and that still is maintained as my primary passion and the work I do. I have a nonprofit for mindfulness and education, but I've worked with people from preschool all the way through adult and helped people in various aspects of life, various different schools from Detroit all the way to Houghton Hancock, Flint schools, and local schools in this area.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So tell me, so how did you get into that role? And then let's talk about what you're seeing in that role. Okay?
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting story. So as a child myself, I wanted to be a psychologist, and I basically pushed that down. My parents thought it wasn't the best idea. And so I listened to them instead of myself and took a test in college to find out what I should do, and ended up in a career in environmental science, which was great because I love nature, even though I scored highest in medicine. Didn't think about mental health, right, as medicine at the time.
Okay.
And then after my mom died in 2010, I was doing some soul searching, and it's going to sound strange, but if you understand energy, which I know you do, it literally came to me, not as my own thought, but to teach mindfulness to children. And I didn't even know what it was.
Okay.
So,
oh, wow. So you just had this thought, and
like it came into me, literally,
what is it?
And so mindfulness is present moment awareness. It's gained through the practice of meditation. And so as we meditate and we train ourselves to stay on focus, we're better able to be in the present moment when we're out in the world. And so like right now in conversation, we're human. It might be natural for your mind to wander to perhaps the meeting you have later today. You notice it wander and you bring your attention back. The more you do that, the more you train your mind to do that, the more you're able to stay in the present, which the benefits are less anxiety, less depression, less attention to the things that we don't want in our lives, and then that opens up the space to create what we do want in our lives.
So isn't that interesting how we were talking about that in, Trice and I met in a networking group at the Brighton Lighthouse, and there were, 15 of us maybe today, and that came up over and over about how our desire, intention for 2023 was to just be more present. And across the board, people said that. And then we had the thought is, if it's so prevalent here, how does that relate to the greater population?
Right. And I can tell you, I was referring before we started here to this basically epidemic of children suffering. I just read an article that was provided to me by a colleague about how children were struggling prior to the pandemic, and that basically made things even worse. And my personal belief is that, I think even as adults, we can relate to this constant inpouring of information. You pick up a phone and it's all these reminders, or the news, or whatever, the social media. And so what's happening, and it actually, the article references a hospital in California where they're talking about the numbers just skyrocketing for children coming in. And I'm doing a blog post with a newsletter that's going to go out Monday that addresses this. And as a result, I'm going to be offering love-based donation sessions because what we're seeing right now is, and I sort of skipped over what I've done in the past, but we can get to that. We're seeing this just amazing number of people in general. And, but my focus is going to be more on the kids, but I would help anyone, because if the parents need it, then that helps the kids too, right? But that are not able to even get in for therapy because there's just such an extended wait list, and it just breaks my heart. Kids are really suffering from that, the social isolation they had, huge elevations in anxiety and depression and suicide. And it's like, when there's another way, when I know that I can empower people, it's just a huge passion. And so I also do workshops. I'm one of Dr. Joe Dispenza's certified trainers. And as a part of that, I offer free training for kids too. So again, that is completely free. What I'm doing one-on-one with people is love-based donation, meaning people pay what they can afford and what they feel.
So what would you?
It's equitable.
No, I get it. It's epidemic, and it's incredibly unsettling, right? So what would you say to? And from what I've seen, it's not just the United States; it's worldwide. These are worldwide issues, and so what would you say to somebody who's listening? What's a step that they can take, like right now, as a parent, as an individual? To help, I don't know, start the conversation or shift the process
with their children,
or children that are in their sphere.
Yeah,
like as a teacher.
Mm-hmm. So it's very important to relate to people where they're at. So if, for example, I was trying to talk to you about it, and perhaps you were struggling with a death in the family. If I'm coming at you with something and that's more present and you can't pay attention, or it could be something joyful. Maybe you have a wedding that's coming up, right? And so addressing what is, that's what mindfulness meditation is. It's about being with what is. And so finding out what is present for that child, for that person. And maybe it's an interest they have. Oh, they love to play soccer and they're frustrated that they're not better. Maybe they lose their temper and aren't able to continue in a game on a regular basis. And so addressing their love for soccer, something to pull them in to see the connection for what it is that they love and how this can help in their life. And it's either suffering or joy. And so one of Dispenza's famous quotes is that you can change in times of pain and suffering, or you can change in times of joy and inspiration. And we tend to wait for that pain and suffering. It seems to almost be human nature, but as we evolve, we can change how we do that. We can say, you know what, like what we were talking about in the meeting, what are we grateful for? Yeah. And the more you focus on what you're grateful for, the more you attract that. And it's not just woo-woo, it's science. And when people start to see that there's a science behind that there's a measurable energy field, it becomes more accessible.
And I love when you said, this is it's neuroscience. This is not, my husband teases me too. He'll go, that's, just your woo-woo. And I'm like, and even if that's all it was, but I feel better. I mean, who loses? We all win, right?
It's what works for you, like the placebo effect, right?
Right. So the gratitude, I do know, like this morning, there's just a lot going on right now, and this morning I was feeling kind of like that, and then that I've learned to pay attention when I'm feeling kind of like what's going on? Just stop, stop, and where's the gratitudes? And the gratitudes do make a difference. And I always did that with my kids. They would get into this and I'm like, give me 3, and they knew that meant 3 gratitudes to just shift their energy because it's so accessible.
It is. And someone in today's meeting mentioned a fishbowl for ideas. And
that was so cool. Yeah.
It was. So an idea I was going to share, but we didn't have time, was a jar for feelings that you want. So you wake up in the morning and it's next to your bed. And instead of focusing maybe on the phone, the news, whatever at first, or a problem that you think you have to solve or all that you have to do and get done that day, pick a feeling out. Today I want to feel playful. And all day long, like a meditation, you nurture that. So the mind, the emotions wander. You go, today's word is playful. Maybe you put it somewhere where you're going to see it all the time, all day.
That's so cool. That's great. What a great idea. I mean, how fun is that?
Yeah, exactly.
And then so you just fill up your jar with those words that you want to manifest.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
That's the thing. It's like people don't realize we have control over our thoughts and our feelings. And it's like I always refer back to The Wizard of Oz with Dorothy. She had the power all along, right? We literally have, and in today's world, the stress is the number one killer for most areas of the world. And it's based on our thoughts that we don't even have to have, our thoughts that aren't even necessarily true. Anxiety is driven by, oh my gosh, what if I don't get that done? Or what is he or she going to think of me? Or, all these things. And it's like, so that's a habit. So breaking that habit of being anxious.
Oh, that is so powerful, right?
Yeah.
And so true. And it's easy to talk about and say, do these things. But I mean, I know that when those emotions hit, it takes real intention to shift them. And sometimes it's not like, okay, I do the gratitudes. Well, I feel a little better. But sometimes I have to do them 10 times. Right? And then you do shift or smile or breathe or, all of those things. Go out in nature.
Yeah.
But I've just learned, and I'm wondering if you find this, is that that choosing, we get to choose, and it's not just making the choice, it's following up with the actions, right? To step into it.
Yeah. And that's why practice is essential.
And so to teach this to children, I see my grandchildren even are learning meditation in their preschools, which to me is like, oh my gosh, that's so powerful,
right?
To learn that as a child.
Yeah. And it's been done in other societies for so many years, but dismissed here until it became more science-based, which was something that evolved a lot through Jon Kabat-Zinn's work.
Okay.
Yeah. And so he's an author, speaker, and has much more to him than that. He's an amazing guy. Yeah.
So what do you you work in the schools as well? And what does that look like? So what would like a session with you look like?
Yeah. So I have worked in the schools. I worked in schools from like Detroit, Flint. So I worked for an organization that taught in Flint schools for a couple of years. I have my own nonprofit that I taught through.
So tell us about that.
My nonprofit is the Michigan Collaborative for Mindfulness in Education.
Okay.
And my business is, another entity that I've done the work through. So it sort of depends on just where it flows. But I've used the Mindful Schools curriculum. I've been trained in several curriculum, including Goldie Hawn's Mind Up program, one called Breathe. But Mindfulness in Schools has been one of my favorites. And so that just means, first of all, addressing the administration. The teachers and staff are suffering a lot. There's a lot of stress going on in schools. And so giving them some tools and so that they understand the program, getting them on board. And then going into the classrooms, it's typically 15 sessions for about 20 minutes each time, twice a week.
Okay.
And, then there's a lot more details.
A lot more too, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So I am a university professor, and I started teaching creativity and innovation, and I would have the students meditate for the first 20 minutes of class. And people would be like, what are you doing? And I was like, that's until we can get our minds clear and our, understand where we are. It was just another tool for them, right? Then they'd never been exposed to it.
I love that you did that. I want to be in your class.
Yeah. I just have found that it's so powerful.
Well, so when we try to figure things out based on the known or even create, right? We're only dealing with the known. And so in order to create, in fact, I listened to a podcast or an interview with Michael Singer yesterday, who's an author of The Untethered Soul and The Surrender Experiment. Fabulous interview. And he was talking about that. He said, allow yourself to know that everything you want, you already have. There's no wanting.
Right.
There's no striving. And as a result, you become clear. And through that clearness arises within you that creativity. And he talks a lot about service to others, but it's so many of the most, especially in 2022, the most amazing solutions to my problems evolved when I let go and I opened up, started with a request, but then belief and a meditation to allow for possibilities that I didn't even know existed. And then every single time, a solution I didn't even know because I was open.
That's the fun, right?
Yeah, it's so fun. I mean,
it's like, it's so much bigger than we are.
It is.
Right?
And the whole manifesting has become a term, but I was talking to a 19-year-old friend of my daughter's recently, and I asked him what he thought about manifesting. He said, well, I call it believing. And I was like, believing, yeah, that is beautiful. It's true. And it's true.
Yeah, it is. Well, on that happy note, I would like to take a little minute and do a shout out for one of our sponsors. And then when I come back, we're going to just cycle back to what one thing, where can somebody start? Because in the chaos, it's just where to start. Okay. All right. So I want to do a shout out to Snedecor's Cleaners. I am traveling out of the country this weekend, and I have been having meltdowns, and I'm just about what clothing to take. It's packing for me is always a challenge and a stress. And one of my friends sent me a packing list on what to take. I'm going to Dubai, right? So, and it was such a help to have that list, and then also to go to my closet and to say, okay, these are the things I need, and to schedule a pickup from Snedecor's Cleaners. I shoved everything in the yellow bag, put it on my doorstep, and it's showing up tomorrow, and I will be able to pack easily, stress-free, and I just love their concierge service is phenomenal. So part of self-care, right, is clothing care. I mean, what we wear can be stressful. So I want to just thank Snedecor's Cleaners.
Nice.
So, yeah, right. Back to my question. So, and I know you said it a little bit earlier, but sometimes people need to hear it again.
Yeah, and I think I'm actually going to add in a different answer because I know that in today's world, everyone is feeling so overwhelmed. They're looking for the quickest way, right? And whether in some cases that's a pill or some other thing that, maybe it's food, something that is just going to make it go away quickly. And I think the best thing I can do is to say that my phone number and other contact information will be in the show notes, so that people can schedule a 15-minute call with me so that they can really get a concrete idea of if this will work for them or their child. And, of course, no charge. It's just a way for them.
You're just giving back to the community.
Yeah,
wow,
absolutely.
That is so generous and gracious of you.
It seems like it, but I will tell you something. So it's a funny quote from Gandhi where he said, everything we do has a self-serving side to it, something like that. And I always remembered that, and I always think to myself when people say that, and I appreciate what you said, but I have 2 young daughters who are 16 and 19, and anything I can do to make this world a better place, it serves them.
Yeah. I agree. We've got grandkids, and they're beautiful human beings, and I want to see them grow up and have kids of their own. And what will that look like? Right. So thank you so much for being here. And we didn't even talk about the benefits of food and good fat on calming our emotions and our anxieties, but we'll save that for another episode. And thanks again, Trice Berlinski, for being here with us today. And please remember to go to check out goodfatlife.com, our website, and just see all the cool things that are happening, and maybe find some things that inspire you and make your life a good fat life. So thank you.